tutorial is how to build a class in Visual C++ from Chapter 12. I've already opened a project because there's nothing new about the way you open a project. It's the various files that you add that are different when you're working with classes. So I don't have any items yet, so the first thing I'm going to do is to add a new item. And this one is going to be my header file that's going to do two things. Rather than have a separate implementation file, I'm actually going to include the implementation in with the definition of the class. So the type of file I want is a header file, a .h file, and I'm going to actually call it dog, and it of course will be in my project folder. So I'm going to add dog, and you see it over here in the Solution Explorer as well as the tab here, and I'm going to do both my definition and my implementation. So I need IOStream as my header, and I'm working in the standard namespace. And then I'm ready to define my class, which always starts with the reserved word class. It's going to be called dog, and it starts with an open brace to show where the class definition begins and ends. There are two sections. Actually, there can be three: public, private, and protected, but at this point we're just looking at public and private. Public indicates that it can be accessed by the main code in a program. So this is where your functions go, and my first function is the constructor called dog. The constructor is always called when an object is instantiated, and it always has the same name as the class. Then I have some other functions. One of those is a set weight function to set the weight of my dog, and it takes a parameter weight. The next one is a get weight. So I can set the weight and pass a value in pounds, and then I can come back and pull whatever that weight is and output it using get weight. Then I'm going to add one more function because I want my dog to be able to speak. It's a void function, and it has no parameters. Now that is the end of my class definition, so it ends with a curly brace and a semicolon in this case, because I'm going to come right down on the next line and put the implementation of, actually I'm not, I need to do private, and I forgot that. We only have one private member, which is almost always a variable, and it is here. It is the variable weight that I'm using in my function. So now I'm close. Now I can come right down here and start the implementation. You can do the implementation in a .cpp file, but then you're dealing with three files. So if it's not very long, and as it isn't in this case, I choose to put the implementation in the header file along with the class definition. So first I'm going to do my constructor. All of these functions have to use a scope resolution operator, and it does tell you that you're on the right path, because here it is, dog, my constructor, and these are all functions, so they all look the same. Start with a brace, then the code that goes in the particular function you're building with a semicolon, and then I'm going to close the brace. And I'm doing these on one line because most of them are just one-line functions, but also to save some space here so you can see what I'm doing. My next one is the one that's going to set the weight, so dog and the scope resolution operator, and it is set weight. I'm not going to use the same variable name here. Let's just, and I'm not sure that this makes it easier to understand or harder, but W is going to be declared locally and will be the window through which I'm passing the value from the main program. So I want to assign the private member weight equal to whatever is stored in W. So that's the end of this function. Then I need to do my function for my get weight, which is an integer function. Again, scope resolution operator, and I want to get weight, and it doesn't take any arguments. The only thing it does is return to the main program what the value of weight is. And then my last function is my dog speak, which is going to be simply a cout statement. So my dog will say woof woof. And that's the end of that function. So that's the end of both my definition up here at the top, starting with the word class and ending with that closing brace, and then the implementation of my public functions down here. Again, this is a very simple class definition. So now I'm ready to build or add a main program so that I actually can test my class and see if it works. So I go back to add item here, and this time I want a .cpp file, and I am going to call it main. Now, main shows up in the Solution Explorer, as does dog H, but you have tabs up here that allow you to switch from screen to screen so you can see all of your code. My main program, nothing too different in the first part here. I am going to include IO stream because I'm going to do some input from the keyboard. Then I have to have my dog class, so I need another include statement, but the syntax is a little different when it's a header file that I've defined. Instead of the less than and the greater than, I need to enclose this in quotes. And I'm still in the same namespace, std, and then I'm ready to start my function main. And the first thing I'm going to do is declare a variable called pounds that I'm going to use when I input from the keyboard for the dog's weight. And then I'm going to declare two dogs, and so they are of class dog. So I'm instantiating dog, the name of the class, and I have Sadie and Fred, the names of my dogs. Now, I'm ready to start using my class code. So the first thing I want to do, and I need to use the name of the object, which is Sadie in this case, the dot operator, the member access operator, and the first thing I want to do is to set Sadie's weight. So I need the set weight function, and I'm going to pass to it 19. Sadie weighs 19 pounds. Now that's set weight. So if I go back to dog H, then you can see set weight is being passed a parameter. So the 19 is going to come in through the W, and then it's going to be assigned to weight, which is private to my class. In main, I'm back on the main screen for the main program. I want to do a cout here and say that Sadie weighs. Now, I'm again going to access my class code using the name of my object, and I'm going to get weight from my class code. And it's a function that returns a value because get weight is an integer function. So get weight right here says return weight. So that's been stored with set weight. So it will return the value. And let me finish this out. Pounds, period, and a line feed. Then I want Sadie to speak, so I'm going to say Sadie says, and I want to call my void function. Now, it's a void function, so I've got to call it on a line all by itself, but I call it in the same way. The name of the object, member access operator, and then speak. And I can type it or use IntelliSense, either one, but I do have to put the empty parentheses there to indicate that it's a function. Now, I'm going to set Fred's weight a little different because I want to input Fred's weight from the keyboard. So I need a prompt from my user. Enter Fred's weight. And then I want to read it from the keyboard, but I'm reading in pounds, the local variable I declared here in main. but the rest of the code is the same. So what I'm going to do is copy, starting with set weight all the way down through speak, and just edit which object I'm going to use. So I want to copy this, and then I want to come down here and paste it, and then edit all the Sadies here to Fred. And make one other change on this line, because instead of setting a weight and actually passing it the value, this time I'm going to pass it using pounds. And this time too, we're Fred weighs, Fred get weight, Fred says, just to speed it up. But if I were typing it and I use the dot operator, I get the same options here, as you can see. That's all of my main program, so I want to return 0. You can attempt to build your header file before you do your main, but you'll always get one error about it not being able to find the manifest and to parse correctly. And you sometimes won't see some of the other syntax errors because they aren't evident until you have a main program that's actually calling the code from the class. So I'm waiting to do my build since this one is so small here. And we will hope that it compiles cleanly. It is linking, there it went, and everything is correct. So now my dog class definition and the implementation of my public functions are here in the dog.h file. My main program creates or instantiates two objects, and then I'm making calls back to the class with the public functions. So now I'm going to actually run it. And of course, Sadie weighs 19 pounds, and Sadie says woof woof, which is exactly what we said. Pass it 19, and then Sadie says, now it wants Fred's weight, and Fred weighs 24, so I can key it in and press enter. Fred weighs 24 pounds and says woof woof, which is exactly what my code was set up to do based on my class. So this is how you set up a class with an implementation in the same header file and a main program that uses that header file. The advantage here, of course, is that dog.h is a separate file that I could actually include as long as I have the path, or it's in the same directory as another project, and I could use the code, the .h code, over and over again. So objects allow us to reuse a lot of code.